one thing to point out here, that this event took place in 1940. Now, I know that the Roswell incident was 47 and there was the Missouri incident in 1941. So, do you have cases from as long ago as that?
We have cases. My own case, my own abduction case, started when I was 3.5 years old in 1952. There weren't any monster movies and or anything like that back then. You know, when my parents would certainly never let me watch something like that as a 3.5-year-old child. And my events are conscious. I've never had hypnosis or any memory recovery techniques to, quote unquote, figure out what happened. I know what happened, and I was cognizant, and I saw the entities there. And the answer to your question, do we have cases, but go back further than that? The answer is yes. The problem is, how many people do you get to talk to that have cases back in the late 1800s to 1900s or even earlier? Well, generally you don't get to contact those people because they're either A, dead, or B, your information is anecdotal because they're too old. So my question I always ask my abductees, especially the oldest ones, is, have you ever talked to any of your parents, aunts, uncles, and relatives about anything that may have happened to them? And some of them say yes, and of course then that puts us way back before the 40s.
Robert Hall described a device about the size of a cigarette, which when pointed at an animal or a human, made them become docile. I asked Derrell Sims if he had come across this device in any of his other abduction cases.
I certainly do, and it's excellent that he brought this up and that you noted it. The object there is, it's usually a laser-like device as far as we are concerned. It's what we would liken it to. It appears to be a laser-like device that fires a small little light beam. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's different colors. It doesn't seem to make any difference. Its purpose, it seems to be to neutralize someone should it be necessary. And that we've had an abduction case with an engineer, and this is most interesting because the engineer doesn't believe in abductions, UFOs, flying saucers, period. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. But he does believe in what's happened to him, and it's freaking him out. He said, this can't be happening to me. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, how does it feel to be weird like the rest of us? And he laughed and he said, but I'm normal. This can't happen to me. I said, I know. I said, I understand your problem here, sir. I really do.
Okay. So he had an experience of this kind of instrument.
They couldn't control him. He's very very reactive in the most difficult way. If you try to physically, most people are just scared and don't whatever. He just gets up and tries to fight you. And four of them were four of these little creatures were in the room, and three of them had these little devices like what you described, and they had to use all three of them.
Right.
And those devices almost didn't work. He nearly got them. And in fact, he hit one of the entities he reports and knocked it down, and of course that put him out of commission. But the other three were still using their little laser-like immobilization devices, light taser, whatever you want to call it, to immobilize him, and it finally worked. But he nearly got all four of them.
Right. Another thing that he mentioned, and I think you've given an explanation for this, was that he said that they took blood out of the back of his neck, and they said that he shouldn't lift his head up, otherwise he would be killed instantly. What are your thoughts on that?
I find his statements rather interesting, and here's why. Because first of all, it shows subterfuge. You'll die if you move. Well, we hear this a lot. If you go into any other room than the one we've got you in, you'll die. They say weird things like this because they want a complete obedience out of you. They want you not to see anything or notice anything. That's hence the reason for you not remembering much of anything. Most people will not remember much unless something triggers those events, like they see something, a memory marker, so to speak, and it triggers a memory, and it scares them. They realize they're remembering all kinds of stuff they shouldn't. The bottom line is that these are the best way to describe this for your audience is these are almost like hypnotic commands given to you. Don't move or you'll die.
Yeah.
They'll give all kinds of commands like this in hopes that you will obey them. And, of course, we've got abductees, some of them who simply won't. So I look at this and I wonder if, in fact, they took blood from the back of his neck. Usually it's taken from the bicep or the back of the leg or some more conspicuous place where you would take, where you would find a vein. There aren't very many large veins in the back of your neck, so to speak, where you would take any medical person would not be taking blood from the back of your neck.
Yes.
Now, somebody might be doing something with your spine or something like that, but by and large, it doesn't make any sense. And you'll find that many of these so-called medical procedures, when looked at through the medical eyes, such as our medical team or cardiovascular surgeon and other people, they don't make sense at all. I mean, so it seems, again, it's a ruse. Something else is going on. So what could possibly be going on that they weren't taking blood from? Because I mean, if a nurse takes blood from your arm or any other place, they don't tell you you're going to die because they, don't move because you'll die or whatever. Yeah. So could they have been putting something in or removing something?
Yes.
Now that would make a lot more sense to me. Now I don't know if that's what happened, but that makes more sense because you would want the person to be still while you were installing something or removing something. Yes, that makes any sense.
One thing that Robert Hall claims the aliens asked him was they said that they were looking for relatives of Moses, and they referred to him as the son of Adam. And another thing they asked him was, he said that they asked him why people were fighting, i.e., the Second World War. They asked him about that. Could you shed any light on any of those things?
Certainly can, and again. My thoughts are based on 38 years of investigations, and I pretty much have heard the whoppers and the real things they seem to be concerned with. And as an investigator, I have to separate the two. They're looking for the relations of Moses. You'd need to be looking at Hasidic Jews of and so on, in the lineage of Abraham. And trust me, they know where they're at. And they already know the answers to that. I could tell you dozens of funny stories about this sort of thing. The bottom line is that it's highly unlikely they're looking for the relations of Moses.
Yeah.
They might, but I seriously don't think that.
This is all extremely interesting, but does not provide any proof that these events occurred. I talked to Robert's older sister, Rhoda, to ask what she could remember of the events in 1940. She remembered that there was a reporter who came into the house to question Robert, and that when the reporter was there, another man came into the house to try and prevent the reporter getting Robert's story, but she didn't know where the other man was from. She said that Robert had told this story all of his life and it had never changed. She also insisted that he is not the type of person who lies or makes up stories. I started tracking down the people who lived in the streets where the events took place. The electoral roll of 1939 was a good place to start, so I was able to get all of the names of the families that lived in each house. I knocked on many doors, and by questioning residents was able to track down some of the people that lived in the area. Anne Anderson lived on Newton Street in 1940 with her sister Lily and brother John. They had been evacuated at the time, so would not have witnessed the events. We tracked her down, and she was able to give us contact details of several people who were still alive that lived here in 1940. In total, we have spoken to approximately 10 people who lived very near the spot where the UFO craft landed, and none of them remember any of the events. Only one person claimed that something strange or unusual occurred that year. Another person who lived in the area at the time was Ada Woff. Ada Woff's parents ran the local shop, which is right next to the place where the UFO was alleged to have landed. They also owned the coal yard where the alien was dragged. Ada was 7 in 1940, and we managed to catch up with her to ask if she could recall anything strange at the time.